a subcommittee, I'm pleased to appear before you today to discuss the actions we are taking at Customs and Border Protection to ensure that the laws governing the importation of goods into the United States, and particularly textiles, are properly enforced. As you mentioned, my name is Dan Baldwin, Assistant Commissioner for our Office of International Trade. My office is responsible for formulating CBP's trade policy, developing trade programs, and enforcing our U.S. import laws. The mission of CBP is to prevent terrorists and terrorist weapons from entering the United States, while also facilitating legitimate trade and travel. Indeed, no other country has been as open to legitimate international trade or as committed to facilitating trade by simplifying and automating its trade processes. As a result of America's free trade policies and our increasing efficiencies in processing global trade, over 50% of the goods we buy in this country are in fact imported. Legitimate trade is an integral part of our American business. Last year, we published the CBP Trade Strategy, our public blueprint for how CBP will carry out its trade mission, facilitating legitimate trade without depending on ever-increasing cargo inspections at our 300-plus ports of entry. As a practical matter, we can no longer inspect our way out of trade problems as an exclusive measure of our enforcement actions. Many of our ports of entry are already saturated and simply cannot accommodate escalating cargo examination regimes. Because of these constraints, the CBP Trade Strategy recognized the need for a more layered enforcement approach. This means working both upstream before the entry occurs and downstream after the merchandise has already been entered. Pre-entry activities including reaching out to other governments to leverage global partnerships to accomplish our common goals. Post-entry enforcement includes conducting audits and taking civil or criminal action against those who ignore our trade laws. Since we cannot physically inspect every shipment, we rely on risk analysis and targeting to identify those shipments most likely to violate our trade statutes and regulations. The domestic textile industry has achieved substantial productivity gains by investing billions in new plants and equipment and now ranks third globally in exporting textile products. The industry has expressed strong concerns, however, that it is not receiving the full benefits of its highly competitive productivity because of unfair trade practices by other countries. The elimination of textile quotas in 2009 largely removed the incentive to illegally transship textiles, but many risks remain. These include country of origin fraud, illegitimate trade preference claims, misdescription and misclassification, duty evasion, gross undervaluation, as well as outright smuggling. In response to these threats, CBP maintains a robust trade enforcement program to ensure compliance with all laws and regulations governing imports. Our trade enforcement resources are concentrated on the most significant trade risks, which are designated as priority trade issues. Textiles and apparel continue to be economically sensitive commodities and have in fact been identified as one of our top 7 priority trade issues. The goals of the Textile PTI is to ensure that textile imports, which generate more than 42% of the duties collected by CBP, fully comply with applicable laws, regulations, free trade agreements, trade preference program requirements, and intellectual property provisions. CBP uses a multifaceted layered approach to enforce our trade laws and to ensure the appropriate revenue is collected. This includes trade pattern analysis, on-site verification, review of production records, audits, and laboratory analyses. Risk management-driven textile enforcement operations are used to address noncompliance with these laws, free trade agreements, and other requirements. New tools are constantly being utilized to increase the effectiveness of these operations, including our automated targeting system, which provides numerous targeting elements that were not available in the past to allow specific issues to be addressed while facilitating those legitimate shipments. In addition, we continue to target entities for visits by textile product verification teams, make audit referrals, and work with foreign governments to enforce our trade laws. While seizure statistics at the ports have fallen due to the elimination of quotas, our ability to review shipments and penalize violators reaches well outside the ports. I would strongly caution against the practice of relying solely on seizure statistics as an accurate measure of CBP textile enforcement activity. In 2008, CBP performed 11,800 textile trade exams. Over 1,700 samples were tested by our laboratories, and 42 textile-related audits and another 79 were initiated over last year. The textile product verification team visits. Sometimes we find that the facility does not exist or lacks the capacity to produce the textile products in question. Since 2000, we have visited over 4,500 factories, including 472 this last fiscal year alone. These on-site verification visits disclose major discrepancies, discourage future fraud, and help us target specific shipments into this country. A major concern we have today, however, is that of the supply chain management within the industry itself. Currently, our verification process and controls are limited to the manufacture and importation of the textile goods themselves. That leaves large gaps between those 2 points where we have little information, lack the authority to make in-country visits, or require additional records to ensure that manufacturers, processors, and importers are all complying with the good within the entire supply chain process. In summary, let me say that the U.S. Customs and Border Protection is committed to vigorous enforcement of the trade laws and regulations. We recognize the vital importance of the textile industry to this country, and we continue to focus a substantial amount of our trade enforcement resources in this priority area to help protect our domestic industry and its vital role as an employer in our economy. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to field any questions you may have at this time.